podcast, A Penny for Your Thoughts with me, Steve Penny. Over the coming weeks, I'm going to be talking to some great people. I hope you enjoy listening in. Thank you. Thanks very much, Lawrence, for taking the time to talk to me today. I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with you. I've known you for a very long time, all of my adult life, so it'll be interesting to see how we go through this particular conversation, see what happens. So the first thing I'd like you to do is if you could just do a brief intro about who you are and a bit about your professional life, what you do.
Okay. Lawrence Hooker. I am the Mission Critical Operations Manager for Michael J. Lonsdale, which is a multi-service MEP contractor based in central London. I did the 5-year indented apprenticeship when I was much younger.
Yes,
and
much younger.
Which is where I met you. And since then, I've worked for a variety of large and small contractors, generally MEP contractors. Sort of fell by accident really into dealing with data centres for the past few years, which is I think it's obviously massively expanding as a sector. It's very complex, very technically led. We don't get to debate scenic lighting and coffered ceilings too much.
Just how much cooling can you chuck in this building, please?
It's pretty much. And can you make the lights go off when there's no one there? And I don't want to give the game away, but that's, you pretty much nailed it at that point.
Pretty much that's it. Yeah. My experience on data centers is pretty limited compared to yours, but it was always about making it as robust a system as possible because falling over is too expensive.
Yes, there is now a couple of organisations, the main one being the Uptime Institute, that will come and independently validate your design, your installation, and the resilience of your facility. So we tend to follow the ASHRAE structure for infections testing.
Okay.
So there are some fairly unique aspects compared to other sectors, and I think as an engineer by background, I enjoy that. I enjoy that sort of technicality of the systems. When I've done retail work, that is for an M&E engineer, it can be a little bit soul destroying. I suppose lighting.
It's like office fit outs as well. The bane of my existence is office fit outs because fan call, light fitting, and there you are, you're done. And it just there's nothing satisfying about doing those kind of projects. I don't think for me. But no,
maybe the invoice.
The only bit that's satisfying is getting paid at the end of the job. Yeah, you're right there. Yeah. And they tend to be pretty quick turnover as well, which helps on cash flow. So I'm not going to turn the work down. I've got to be honest. So home life, obviously, I know everything about your home life, but the one or two people that might ever listen to this don't. So could you tell us a little bit about your home life as well?
I've been married to my delightful wife, Helen, who you again know very well for over 30 years now. So we've managed to raise 2 children who are now in adulthood. My daughter works in film and TV, doing makeup, hair and wigs. My son is training to be a chef, so sort of quite diverse career choices. Justin did a year of an engineering course, but I think we both knew that was during COVID, and we both knew that was really a sort of a filler. He's not motivated by that. He is motivated by the sort of creativity that cooking brings people. And I think maybe like COVID lockdown, lots and lots of people discovered the sort of therapeutic quality of cooking.
Creating anything is something about that process, I think, that actually gives you quite a lot of fulfillment, whether it's creating art or music or whatever it may be. And food obviously falls into that category as well. But it does give you a bit more satisfaction than a more mundane type work that we do, I guess.
The biggest issue for the family, really, I think, is I'm a complete philistine when it comes to cooking, and I generally say that I regard any of the pre-packaged microwave meals with 2 compartments as overly complex.
Overly complicated, yeah. There's nothing quite like a chicken ding, is there, really?
Exactly. I don't see why they can't just put it in 1 compartment, 1 foil, one lid that I have to pierce, not 2, that sort of thing. We live in Kent, in the UK, and we stumble through family life. I think like most families
do. Yeah, I think it is challenging sometimes, life, and I think the last 3 years have certainly shown that there's the world put a lot of stress on people's family life. I think the forced isolation is not a good thing.
No, No, I think for the vast majority of people, part of COVID certainly for me, the thought of isolation, even working from home, is not something that I want. I appreciate that is because I don't have some of the demands, of young family and things like that. Yeah. And I guess I've always commuted. I've always had relatively long, net by modern standards, sort of car or train journeys, and I personally quite enjoy that. I know it sounds a bit masochistic, but I read a lot.
Yeah, I think it's that journey is for me. That journey is a way of decompressing after work. That's what I actually used to enjoy the commute, because it allowed me time to get out of my work headspace before I got home.
Absolutely,
which is much more challenging when it's great that I'm only 15 minutes from home, but it doesn't really give you that chance to sort of clear your head and get that work mentality away again once you get home. There's some advantages.
100%, I agree with that. Yeah, you've switched off.
Yes. So we started on our career paths at about the same time. I think you were probably a little bit before me, but what made you take the route that you did, going into doing the building services engineering O&D where we met? How did you get to that point? Because I don't think I've ever asked you that question.
I decided that I wanted to pursue architecture, but in the days before the sort of pre-CAD, when I investigated the course and I went to an open day at the RIBA, it was very much, the first couple of years were very much sort of drawing skills and art-based drawing skills. And at home, I'd had my own A1 drawing board and T-square, and I used to do technical drawings. So I went back to the careers advisor and sort of said, it seems much more art-based, the course, certainly initially, and that's not me. I'm not necessarily creative in that fashion. And they said, well, there's this company that does M&E engineering. I said, oh, what's that? And they sort of explained it, and I went along for said, okay. The careers advisor said, so it's still in construction, it's still in that industry, and but you're just doing the internal stuff that makes the building work as opposed to the building fabric. Yeah, I went along and got an apprenticeship, a very old sort of fashion type interview. My dad had to go and sign the indentures to say that that I would be a good apprentice and things like that. And I did that, which is was one of those lucky things in life.
Lucky? You sure you mean lucky? That I know you've had a long career out of this, but I mean, we've had quite a few conversations about how much you enjoy your job.
I think, I don't know what else I'd be suited to, really.
No.
That would allow me to be argumentative some days, that would sort of reward my sense of creating something, even though it sort of doesn't fall under the heading of creativity and art. But I enjoy the satisfaction of a physical record of all of the effort that has gone into a project. When I sort of still bore Helen senseless if we drive around the M25 and or through central London, I'll point out all the the building that and that she knows I worked on. She's known for 20 years that I've worked on. I did that job, and yet I can't stop myself.
That brings me on to something else. Just a little bit about how you and Helen met, because I kind of know this story, but I thought it might be worth exploring that a little bit.
I met Helen when I was a young engineer, and I was assigned to a newly handed over bank building in central London that Matthew Hall had done the services within, and my job was to go around and take all of the plant temperatures morning and afternoon, and in the intervening period to do a bit of sort of PR, walk around and adjust air conditioning settings in individual offices if they needed to, and just sort of make sure that the staff were happy and comfortable. Helen was one of those people, so I think the people around us sort of clocked on that if I went in and into her particular office room to ask how their comfort conditions was that day, and she wasn't there, I would come back about 15 minutes later
subtle,
and check again. So so sort of coming near the end, I was there about 8-9 months, so coming in the end of that sort of stint, I eventually, one of her colleagues said, for God's sake, aren't you going to ask her out now then? And after watching sort of several months of what can only be described as inadequate juvenile attempts at banter and chatting up.
The conversation up,
Yeah. So yeah,
it's horrible being a man, mate. You know that it's truly horrible being a man. You have to do all of this shit and get no thanks for it.
Yeah, if I ever feel I tick enough of those boxes, I'll let you know. But I do think, in all seriousness, you know, the construction industry, the one thing this does give you when you look back with a bit of hindsight is an ability to talk to people you don't know, to engage, to communicate, maybe to argue your point sometimes. I mean, God knows I don't really like arguing, but now and again it's necessary.
I've never thought that about you, that you're argumentative, to be honest, in the 40 years that we've known one another.
Be amazed. Yes. Yeah.
I'd actually say, if I'm honest, I think it's the building services and architecture are the two that have the most interaction with people during a construction process on a project, from a consultant's perspective anyway, because structural engineers have very little to do with the actual front end client, and they tend to be a lot more reserved in the way that they act and are around people. Whereas the building services guys, we're the ones that people shout at when it's too hot, too cold, too bright, too drafty, too dark, whatever it may be. We are the glamour
boys of construction, mate. We are the glamour boys.
We are absolutely the glamour boys. Yes,
they're rock stars. The rock stars of
that's why we do it, because we're rock stars. That's right. I remember now. When did you actually start work? Did you start work in 84, or was it 83 that you started work?
I started in 83, so I did a year of ONC, didn't I? And then you started, and
in 84,
we moved on to the HNC.
Yeah. So, do you realise then? Do you know what that actually means then? That this year you've been working for 40 years.
I knew you was going to say it. That again must be an incorrection. There must be an incorrect calculation there somewhere, because that would make me really bloody old.
I know the feeling. So looking back over that enormously long and amazing career of yours, what would you say would be your proudest achievement at work?
My proudest achievement at work.
Still having a job?
I think that there have been projects that I have invested a huge amount of personal energy into completing and getting over the line. And the weird thing is, I don't think that necessarily gets, and I'm, and this goes for many people projects, that it's because it's completely a collective delivery of any successful project, but each within that, to get a complex technical project delivered well, there will have been a number of people that have really used their skill set, their knowledge, their communication skills, and invested their own personal energy into persevering, resolving problems, being flexible, being creative in terms of coming up with solutions, and that, so I think I can think of several projects. They are just, they're just projects that got built and commissioned and that, but in getting to that state, being handed over, there was some sort of personal efforts and wins. I can think of a few incidents where I persevered, and maybe I, as an engineer, I enjoy the point of sometimes where I actually see the wood for the trees, and I can diagnose a problem, with during a commissioning phase, during an installation phase, or design opportunities, and personally contribute, to a solution. And it's so that I wouldn't look back, because all the projects are a collective delivery. I don't think I would ever have, it would be wrong to sort of point to a project and say, I was the one that made that job work. It's not that. It's that you have, as part of a collective group, you have contributed positively to that collective success. So
That's a good way of not answering my question.
You're welcome. My career in politics will start
immediately, I would have thought.
Okay. I think just a sense of resilience. You described it as still having a job, and I think fingers crossed. But I think that is pretty much the same thing. If there have been a number of people.
I think there's easier ways to earn money. I think, certainly it appears from the outside that there's easier ways to earn money than what we do.
Yeah.
But whether that's true or not, it's hard to know, because I've only ever done this. But there seems to be a lot of people out there that make a lot more money a lot quicker.
Yeah, I enjoy the flexibility, the variety of your daily work and things, and let's say the engineering. So I think that sort of definition of easier maybe in terms of the the hours, whether it would drive me insane within weeks, that is probably what would happen. If someone was to say, well, come and work in this office processing procurement.
Did I ever talk to you about I can't remember how the conversation started now, but there was somebody that I think I was talking to about pensions at one point, very early in my career, and he ended up trying to offer me a job working with him selling financial products. And
oh, wow.
And I turned it down because the job was 100% on commission. There was no base salary at all. So if you didn't sell, you didn't get paid. And it just didn't, that idea of having that level of pressure on all day, every day, you must go and sell, because it kind of changes your approach to what you're doing. You're not being altruistic in that situation. You've got to make sales.
No, you'll sell to anyone. Yeah.
Whether it's good for them or not is less of an issue. If you don't sell it to them, you don't eat. So I think it's, whereas what we do, you can be a little bit more altruistic. You can think about what is the best outcome on this project, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't really benefit you one way or the other. That best outcome is usually best for project and not specifically best for you. And I think there's a slightly different view then on how you deliver your work, isn't there? If you're driven by having to sell stuff or having to make a sale in order to get paid, I think your perspective is very different. I don't know. I'm just rambling now.
I think there is there's a huge amount of industries that are driven, in which the people are driven in a completely different way, and their sort of definition of success. I've met people whose definition of a good job or a rewarding job is one in which they can find ways to do nothing. And I think, well, I don't know how you get any personal satisfaction
out of avoiding doing anything. It was either Steve Jobs, I think it was Steve Jobs, who said that whenever he was looking to employ people, he would always look for lazy people because they would find the easiest way to get something done. And I'm not sure whether I kind of agree with that, because it depends on the lazy person, because some lazy people will just avoid doing anything and let other people do all the work and then take the credit. But I
agree. I think some of those lazy people would just find a way to justify not doing the thing in the first place, in which case there's lots of examples of things that have been discovered and developed as a byproduct of attempting to do a different task or a different thing. So if we all sort of sat there and justified doing nothing, then where does that get us? No, I don't. I understand what you're saying. But
you do need to. I think that sort of leads on to that adage, work smarter, not harder, which I think is actually a bit more of something I can get behind. It's not about being lazy and finding the easiest route. It's actually about finding the most efficient way of delivering the outcome, so that you put in the least amount of effort for the most amount of outcome. And that's I was just saying, my pet hobby horse at the moment is to try and generate a much fuller, much smarter use of BIM within the MEP contracting business. Certainly anyone that I'm in, but just also a couple of presentations that I've done really to validate my own thoughts by sharing those with people and letting them critique those, but also just to try and stimulate awareness and dialogue. The whole building information modelling side of things, it's a very powerful tool, but like any tool, it's only as good as the person operating it, really. You can have the best tool in the world, but if the person using it doesn't know how to use it, it doesn't matter.
So there are a lot more people now, I would say, in the last sort of 5 years that I meet a lot more people now that are genuinely able to use the software and not only integrate information and incorporate it, but actually manipulate that information and generate bills of quantity, generate timelines, generate all sorts of analysis of change within the model and progress.
So 3D, 4D, and 5D BIM, basically.
Exactly. And that's now it is eminently achievable as part of a routine project. And it's as you said, you've got to have the right people, but partly you've also got to have a change in attitude, because still on too many projects, BIM is 3D modeling. Nowadays, clients will want embedded data, but we're still doing it late in the process, where the valid output really during the construction project is still only seen as 2D drawings, which is completely missing the point. And don't get me wrong, I'm generalising there. There are lots of companies, but I think also trying to move to that next era. But there's a lot that don't. There's a lot of people that would just sort sort of still talk about CAD.
Yeah, well, yeah, but then I mean that brings me to another question really. If you think about across our careers, when we started off, CAD didn't exist, the internet didn't exist, mobile phones didn't exist,
electric lights barely did.
Well, yeah, I mean they were wind up most of the time. There's no actual wires going to them. But no, it's just thinking about the amount of change that there's been in the technology that we use for our jobs in what isn't a massive amount of time really. I mean, I know 40 years seems like a long time, but it's not really in the scale of things. And the way we deliver the work we do has changed so fundamentally that you wouldn't recognize it if you were.
No, agreed. Yeah, it has changed. No, it has changed massively.
Yeah, I was having this conversation with one of the other people that I've spoken to on this podcast, and what they said is that what appears to be the case is that we've invented this technology to make our jobs easier so that we can work less, and what it means instead is that we're actually working about the same but delivering a lot more.
Yeah, it takes more effort to incorporate all that intelligent data.
Yeah.
I think, and this is where I'm coming from, that would be a really common, understandable perception at the moment, because what we're not then doing is we've started to go to a lot more effort of getting the data included and constructing models correctly in terms of libraries and I'll probably use the wrong terminology, but we are constructing the models to allow us to put that data in. We are also able to extract a huge amount of information to assist with procurement, and as I say, identifying where not only where physical clashes occur and things like that, but actually just simplifying the project. We can generate schedules of builders work openings.
Yep.
In a couple of hours
with a high degree of accuracy as well.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. And as I say, identifying where changes have occurred, so that if there's some remodeling of wall layouts and things like that, to be able to identify how many more of a particular light fitting type you need to procure to cover that change. Or even as a contractor, let's be honest, to identify that quantum just so you get paid for it. As well. So contractors, there's a lot of reasons why contractors should be pushing this the adoption of this as a fundamental process. And I did recently sit down with our BIM manager and map out like the pre-construction and design and procurement process, but using the BIM, the point that you are at in your BIM journey as the sort of central theme of that flow chart, not BIM going alongside the old style maybe sequence of events, but actually saying that.
Well, that's one of the things I think that we don't use it enough for, is actually looking at the sequence of construction and identifying the best way to build something, rather than using the traditional building methods, which may not be the best way of building it, because that it gives you the ability to create those 3D renders and 3D views that allow you to see the whole of the construction process in steps, and you can play around with it without actually wasting any time on site. So I think that part of how we use the tool is massively underused at this point, I would say.
I agree, and I think that's so people are already now terminology is changing. Where to avoid an old, immediately suggesting an old fashioned definition or concept, people are talking of digital engineering rather than BIM even. Because that just, when you say BIM, people believe that they've got an immediate understanding perhaps of what they what you mean,
perception of what it is.
And
exactly.
A lot of the time
that is a three-dimensional model, not actually an active repository of significant parametric data, which is what it's supposed to be.
I mean, a digital environment.
I mean, there's actually a 3D model created. Isn't there been a BIM made of parts of London now? Is that right? Did I read that somewhere? That they've actually started modelling, as they're building new buildings, they're creating a 3D model of the whole of London.
So I think there's various projects around Europe, certainly around Europe, that I've read of. I think Denmark as well. And that is, so you're sort of talking about things like digital twinning, I guess.
Yes. Digital twins. That's the phrase I was looking for. Yes.
Yeah, where those there can be then sort of analysis of everything from people flow into the building to to energy usage for different strategies, So yeah, all of that. I think the good thing is that the next generation, or the generation of engineers that are currently sort of just finishing, say, primary school, by the time they get into engineering careers, that digital engineering will be easy for them to take on, because they've been playing with things like Minecraft.
Yep.
They've been working in digital environments, or playing in digital environments. So they're going to be,
they're quite used to the idea. They're used to the idea of VR and all the rest of it as well, which is something we're still struggling with, I think. But so there's a lot of things in there that I think might answer this next question, but I'm going to ask anyway to see if there's anything else that comes out. So in terms of your perspective on life, the universe and everything, would you say that there's a point in time where you identified something that really fundamentally changed your perspective on things?
I think when you get into middle age and you have maybe a hectic work life, a young family, and you're trying to have hobbies and outside interests, I think what does then, certainly for myself, to sort of avoid sort of just driving yourself into the ground, you have to learn, you have to really sort of I don't know how to say it, you have to learn how to prioritize the things that keep you on an even keel.
Yeah,
I think there are a lot of people that sort of burn out in various industries perhaps, and didn't need to, if they weren't 100% focused on one aspect, but they saw the value of a bit of diversity in.
I think that's that work-life balance thing, isn't it? Which is, I mean, it's bandied around a lot, but really getting the balance right between what you do to earn money and what you do to live and enjoy yourself, because they're not really two separate things. A lot of the people I've been speaking to recently have said that they're changing away from saying work-life balance to work-life blend, because it's more of a blend between the two than it is a balance between the two, because they're not really separate at all. I think in modern life, certainly with smartphones and the way we're always connected, it's much harder to separate work and home.
I know what you mean. Yeah, the same. Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
Agree with that, mate.
So a couple of other things round your professional life. Who would you point to as being one of the biggest influences in your life, and why? And if it's not me, I want to know why.
Yeah, we both know what a setup that was. It's clearly you. The biggest influences, I think I've had a real variety, and some of those people inspirational leaders, some of those people an example of how not to do things, how not to lead a team, how not to get the best out of a project team and things like that. I think some people that I would look at and admire, but recognise that my personality, my skill set would not enable me to be them. I couldn't replicate that. And I think that's important as well, because I think you then, if you see a model of something that's successful, but you think you're not actually equipped, that's not your personality, or maybe just there are certainly in the construction industry there are some very old school bullish management approaches on projects and within businesses. That is gradually softened
for those people.
Yeah, but I think so. You then have to say, well, if I don't want to be that, but I still want to achieve, I still want to be successful, then I need to focus maybe on more on communication with people and the positive ways, rather than management by imposition. I've said for a number of years I'd rather manage a team by consensus.
I mean, that's the difference between managing and leading, I think, isn't it? You manage somebody by pushing them to do what you want them to do, and you lead somebody by showing them how you want things to go, and leading by example, acting in a certain way, treating people the way that you expect everyone to treat you and those around them. And that sort of leadership is very different to management, and that's something that I've certainly learned over my career, is that I've had a lot of bad managers, but quite a lot of really good leaders, and they're really very different approaches to the work life.
Yeah, I think that again, sometimes the problem is that there are times when people just need a decision, and they don't necessarily want to be consulted. They just want someone else they need someone to sort of take ownership of a problem and tell them what to do.
Get on and get it done.
And sadly there are times where you don't have the time or to explain something in detail to people, and you just have to say, they have a number of concerns about about whether it's the best thing, the right way to go, whatever. And you just have to say, I understand your concerns. We're going to do that anyway, because, my experience tells me that is the optimum.
But what you're doing there, though, is you're explaining why you're making the decision. The other style is, I don't care what you think, this is what we're doing. And the difference between those two styles is what you're doing and what you're saying is more likely to get a positive outcome from those around you than I don't care, your opinion is of no value.
Surely the difference in those two approaches is driven by whether you think the person's an idiot or not.
Well, to some extent, but also it's also a personality style. I think, it's that there's whether or not the person's an idiot, if they're still part of your team and you're a good leader, you'll be finding ways to improve them, playing to their strengths and not to their weaknesses, rather than ridiculing them for their weaknesses, which is, is the other style that I've seen all too often in people that, people that are inadequate in their own self, in their own life, take that inadequacy out on those around them and use that as a weapon to beat people with. And it's really destructive. And I've seen it in too many places where, that when you talk about old school, it's the kind of, the construction industry in the 80s and 90s was very, very aggressive and confrontational. And that's how everybody did it.
I think very, very sort of judgmental. I can think of a couple of people, even in the sort of relatively recent sort of past 5 or 6 years, a couple of people who of senior management who were sort of completely making instant judgments, and forever and a day, then that person, as long as they were in that business, their opinion of that person wouldn't change. They decided that person was an idiot, and that's how they would treat them, and they saw no value in promoting them or educating them.
One of the guys, the first guy that I spoke to, a guy called Chris Wallace, he actually said that there's two, what he's experienced is there's two types of people. There's people that hold a good idea loosely and a bad idea, and there's other people that hold a bad idea really strongly. And what he was trying to say is that if you're a good leader, whilst you might have a good idea, you're not going to cling to it no matter what. If somebody comes along with information that changes changes whether or not that's a good idea, you'll listen and adapt. Whereas if you're the type of leader where your opinion is the only one that matters, even if your idea is patently bad, you'll never back down. And it's having that ability to adapt and change when things change, because that's one thing that's absolutely never going to change, is that everything's always going to change. It's just life, and being able to adapt to different things is key to happiness as much as anything else, I would say. Okay, so again, just talking about what you do outside of work, because I know there's a lot of you talked just briefly there about finding the balance and finding the time for all the different things you do outside of work. So just some of the things that you do to recharge your batteries and de-stress yourself. Just can you talk a little bit about that?
As you're aware, because you sat next to me, I've got my season ticket at Arsenal, and you're also aware that that's very much for me a social and de-stressing function.
Yes. It's something I miss horribly, mate. I've got to say, I cannot describe how much I miss that social interaction, everything about it.
Yeah,
and it was quite shocking for the last time I came back to the UK for your birthday and we went to the game, just seeing the same people still in those seats was actually really quite emotional for me, because it just felt like I hadn't been away.
I think there is some great continuity of a sense. For me, that is one of those hobbies where there's a sense of
the family,
irrespective of what's happening outside of work. There's a group of people that you get to know and things like that are there no matter what's happening work wise, and some of the things, the other sort of hobbies, and I've been involved in Freemasonry for a number of years, and that's been a really good thing from the point of view of having a social circle and a complete distraction, something that's not connected. I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't people that are Freemasons doing business together, but really, if you want to do business, it's still it's still better off joining a golf club, because it's very different. And I couldn't tell you what half the people in my lodge do for a living, because that's not why we're there, But that and the football were both of the drivers for in both cases. The drivers for me, or big one, was it's completely completely separate from work. I do get involved in. I'm a member of a London livery company, the company of constructors, and I really enjoy the industry-related events. I always try and I encourage young engineers and project managers. I say to them, go and get involved in certain forums, go to the exhibitions and things like that. You know, just get a sense of the wider industry, and because that's very powerful. You start sort of seeing, not only making the opportunity to make network connections and expand your knowledge base, but you also just get a sense of your, you know, the issues within the industry, and the solutions within the industry are not based solely on one project, one design. It always surprises me. Most people, I've met people in their, you know, in their late 50s, and their reference point of resolving a problem was what they did on the last job. They very rarely say what we did on a job like this 10 years ago was. And that might just be people's mannerisms, but I always think people's memories seem to be really short, you know, and yet if you go out and engage with other people in the industry and organisations, I think you get a much broader understanding of lots of aspects of it. So I enjoy that. And then lately I've got myself into sort of some historical society type trips out to France, particularly. I enjoy that. Chloe's coming away with me for a week to climb up some very steep hills to find some ruined Cathar castles, you know, which it's a complete joy. So that, again, something nothing involved with work, nothing involved with any other part of my life. And so maybe that's a little bit of a signature theme for me, is I sort of tend to pick things that are independent of each other, and therefore maybe that also enables me to get more or less involved in any one of them without impacting upon any of the others. You know, I've been explaining that.
Well, it's good to have. I think it's good to have a variety of things that you do outside of work. You know, to give you actually variety in your life. You know, having only work and then one other thing that you do. You know, I think you'd start to run out of energy. I know people that are in their 70s and still working because they haven't got anything else. And you know, and I don't ever want to be that person. I want to enjoy a long and healthy retirement. It's nice to have the option, for sure.
Nice to have the option. If you, I sort of think my intention would be, if I'm still, you know, enjoying the heady, glamour-filled world of data centers when I'm 65, 66, you know, then I'll happily carry on if health lets me. But likewise, if for whatever reason work isn't, you know, it's not the ideal thing, and it's not it's not fulfilling or rewarding or whatever, then I would also like to have some things to then switch my attention to more fully, or more, you know, to a greater extent, and rather than just saying, okay, so work stopped, so I'm now sat indoors looking at four walls. I wonder what I should do.
Well, look, just on that subject, you know what my plans are. I've sort of spoken to you about that. We're sort of retiring and travelling around Europe.
World domination.
I know. Yeah, basically, yeah. But I mean, it just from a travel perspective, you've done a fair bit of travel, but is there anywhere that you haven't been that you really want to get to?
Egypt. I've been interested in Egyptology for years, and it's just one of those places that I'm surprised I haven't got there, considering the amount of I've read and the amount of stuff that I watch on things like YouTube and that. So I think that would be high on the agenda.
I managed to get there. I'm trying to think when it was. It would have been prior to getting married to Chrissy, so pre 1996, so probably early 90s. I think I went over there on a dive trip with the BBC.
I thought you were going to say you were there for the first fix of fix of
the pyramids. Talking of, I think I was there in about 93. I think it was 92, 93, something like that. And I managed to get to the Valley of the Kings, which I have to say is somewhere I definitely want to go back to, because it's awe-inspiring, to be honest. And the other thing that's come up, I don't know how much you know about is it Gobekli Tepe site in Turkey?
Tepe. How long you got? This needs to be we need to do another couple of episodes then. Because
I'd really be keen to do that, mate, because I'm really interested in that site because of the questions it's asking. You know, we've had this view that civilization is about 5,000 years old as we know it, and that's 11,000 years old. And it's more complex than the pyramids and the Valley of the Kings and other sites that have been found. And it predates them by 6,000 years. It's
I'll get you a set of Graham. If you haven't already got them, I'll get you a set of Graham Hancock books. There are lots of other sites, places like Saxe Human and various other ones, particularly in that sort of South American region, where we can't explain some of the sizes of stonework and the nature of interlocking stonework. We can't explain that.
It's been tooled in a way that we can't even repeat.
Yeah.
So we don't know how it was made because we can't actually make it.
Yeah, there's a terrific podcast, a terrific episode on YouTube by the actual provider is sort of BAM, Builders of Ancient Monuments. And
I've seen that one. Yeah, I've seen that.
That I really enjoyed that because that wasn't done. It wasn't sensationalized. It was sort of presenting. Well, look, this is what's here, and this is why. In reality, it's a real problem for us because we don't understand this aspects and the.
Yeah. I mean, I keep having this idea because we know so little about the Earth's history. Really, we know that it's about 5 billion years old, something like that, and we know that there's been life on the planet for about 3 billion years, and that multicellular life started somewhere around about 1 billion years ago. But that's a long time, and I don't see any reason to suppose personally why the wiping out of the dinosaurs with that giant asteroid is the only time that's happened.
No, I think I've seen some YouTube content that suggests that there could have been possibly four mass extinction events, as they call them. I remember hearing a radio interview. There was a scientist that was being interviewed about her work, and one of the things she was part of was a think tank that various governments paid to identify for them, for their particular country in its location on the planet and given its resources or whatever, they would identify threats to, for that government to focus on, particular to their particular country.
Circumstances, and, I guess.
Yeah. She said to the interviewer, they got talking about they calculated the percentage of risk of any one event, economic or natural disaster, or whatever, for that country. So she said the thing that stuck with me was that the calculated percentage chance that by the end of the century there would have been a mass extinction event, which was defined by her as the loss of 75% of most species. The percentage chance of that before the end of this century is 25%.
Fuck. Okay.
So at that point, I'm going out. I'm having the holiday. I'm going to buy a new car.
I mean, but I guess that sort of just does bring something else into focus, though, doesn't it? I mean, that's the thing that I've found, and it's nothing to do with a mass extinction event, but looking at where I'm at in my life right now and what I want to do with the rest of my life, having a focus on what you want to achieve and really thinking about where do I want to be is not something I've done really. I've kind of meandered through my career and it's gone well, I have to say. I can't complain about where I've got to, but I'm now at a point in my life where I'm starting to really seriously consider what my next steps are. What do I want to do? What is it that I want to achieve? And the retirement and living in Europe and traveling around Europe is a massive goal for me. And having that focus and wanting to enjoy that period of time, there's so many things that can go wrong. But if you don't have that focus and you don't have that goal you want to achieve, you can kind of wander on and never really get anywhere. And having that idea that there's going to be a mass extinction event, well, yeah, maybe there is, but that's not now. Enjoy today, enjoy tomorrow, and enjoy the day after. And make sure you are getting the most out of every single day, because it could happen tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, it's nice to be cheerful.
Yeah, but that's the point. You've got to be cheerful, haven't you? Because if you spend your entire life worrying about whether or not that's going to happen, it's not much of a life, is it?
No.
You could easily go and build yourself a bunker and hope it never happens. But the other side of it is, well, if it does, then I'd rather be one of the first ones to go rather than struggling through a post-apocalyptic Earth, because none of those movies go well. It never looks like a good outcome to me, ever.
I want to learn to farm. Yeah.
So look, just looking backwards a little bit. If you were able to go back and speak to your 20-year-old self, in between the drunken bouts of debauchery that were going on back then, I'm sure not that there's any evidence to that effect. But if you're able to get back to your 20-year-old self and give a piece of advice to your 20-year-old self about something, what would it be and why?
I would say similar to what you you just said, I would say step back a little bit, look at the career path you want, and don't be afraid to work towards that career path, and be confident about it. Go out and actively sort of seek. I have done that, but possibly not in a very intelligent way in the past. When I've changed jobs, as you well know.
We've both made those decisions, mate.
And I think that there's a life lesson in that. Now I'm not phased, but certain things might happen, and in the past I would have been devastated, and now I wouldn't be like that now, because you've sort of been through those and you've come out the other side, and that life goes on, etc. So, but I would say I could have been much smarter about the effort I put in. Yeah, deliberate might be a good word, but also confident. Go and actively work out how to get there more, rather than just sort of saying, well, maybe I need to change jobs and maybe something good will come of that. That's not the same thing. It's not the same thing.
I like to look back and think I was being deliberate, but the reality is I wasn't. With the decisions I've made to move around, that you could argue, I could argue to myself, if I was feeling particularly insecure about it, that I made those decisions on purpose. That was deliberate. But a lot of the time it was more a case of reacting. When I resigned from one of my businesses that I'm not going to mention by name, but when I resigned from them, I had no job to go to, and I was on 3 months' notice, and they made me work my entire notice, but gave me nothing to do for the entire 3-month period. And that was probably when it wasn't a bad decision, because I did need to get out of that organisation, but it was really tough because it just was soul destroying, being treated the way I was, and knowing what was going on in the business at the time and all the other stuff that was going on around me. I just, it was not good. But, and fell from that into another job, which I absolutely loved, fell from that into another job, which I didn't like too much, and then went to the Middle East, and, it's onwards and upwards. Got made redundant, had my neck cut open and 2 discs removed, and, it's all been good. Life's great.
exactly as you planned.
Is that in the sealed
envelope that you left? Is that in the sealed envelope that you left yourself when you were 20?
Yeah, I'm not allowed to open it up until I turn 55, which was last week. So it'll be nice. Sorry, what? Don't panic. Written on the outside in large friendly letters. Don't panic. It was all a plan. Trust me. I'm an engineer. Yes. Well, you were a bit different there, because a number of the people I've spoken to, pretty much the first thing they said was, I'd say put some money in a pension.
Really?
Really.
So that mindset might also explain why I'll be working longer than they will. That wasn't where I went. I still went for the let's make some money quick.
I'm in the same boat as you, mate. I mean, I've literally got no money in terms of my pension, nothing at all, really. And the business is my pension fund. I've got to make it really successful so that I can sell it for loads of money and retire. Because if I don't, then I'll be working till I die.
You're well on the path for that.
Well, not after the last 2 years. Trust me.
I think pensions, and I did start a pension when I was sort of 21, 22, but didn't put a lot into it. And I think the other problem with life is you go through lots of phases economically in the country or whatever, where with the I had an endowment mortgage at one point, and then endowment mortgages were forecast to not cover the mortgage payment. And I wish I'd have carried on. I wish someone would have just said to me, no, don't change your way. I know it won't cover the whole thing, but keep paying that, because you'll have a lump sum of money of whatever, 100 grand in 20 years time. And instead I cancelled it and just took out a straightforward repayment, and maybe I would have, I don't know, if I'd have considered the other option, maybe I would have still come to the same conclusion, depending on what extra money that would have required me to spend that I did or didn't have per month on the mortgage. But
didn't have, mostly in our case, in my case anyway.
Oh no, I've never been worried at the end of the month as to where to hide all this spare money that's left over. Never.
No, that's not a conversation I've ever had with myself. Bloody hell, what am I going to do with all of this money? It's not really it's not really a conversation I've ever had, I've got to say. No. So look, I just want to circle back onto the football, because we brushed past the football, really. That Arsenal obviously is the biggest love of our lives.
Yeah.
How long have you actually been a fan of Arsenal Football Club, would you say?
I first Well, probably since I was about 8 or 9, right. And because I mean, obviously we both lived near the ground at various times, at different times, but also because I in that sort of way that kids do, they sort of go looking for firstly clubs that are successful, and Arsenal hadn't long won the double in '71. That was still a recent thing, but they also found out that my great grandfather worked at Woolwich Arsenal.
Oh, right.
And that was
I did not know that.
Yeah, never really. I've not bored you with that story before.
No.
Well, okay. I'll send you a transcript to save time for that. All right, that was an immediate link for me with the club. Yeah, and that was one of the main reasons, really. I say that and they've been recently successful.
And then you'd had '79, and we won the FA Cup, didn't we, against Man United? I think it was '79, wasn't it? Yeah, which was I remember that's kind of probably when I started following them, really, when I was about 10, 11 years old, because of that cup final.
Yeah, so, I mean, I did get a few times to go to Arsenal when at Highbury as a kid. My best pal at school, he and I went over there a few times, but didn't have a lot of money to go, basically. So luckily it didn't cost a lot then.
Not like it does now.
So I used to go over there when I as regularly as I could when I was sort of 11, 12, and then obviously that carried that on, and then we got the opportunity to get the season tickets, and there'd be a lot of things I'd give up before that, but unfortunately the only downside is TV and the way it manipulates the fixtures. As I said before, I enjoy it for the stress relief and for the socialising, and so going on a midweek is a real. I lose.
You've got it next year, mate. Champions League again.
Yeah. I mean, I like the Champions League games, obviously, but going midweek is not the same. You don't have, when you've got to dash there from work and then dash home to get the last train or whatever. That's not as rewarding.
You don't get the same engagement with the game, I don't think. And that's what I really enjoyed about going to those games when we were going in the 90s was it would be a case of Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning, catch up, go and have breakfast in the little Wonder Cafe, go and have a pint before the game, go to the game, go to the pub again, have a pint or two or three, depending on how well the game went, and then
whether
head
we're
home,
celebrating or commiserating.
Basically, and all of the banter that goes along with all of that, because you're with a big group of people, and it's that shared experience is hard to replicate outside of big events like football, I think.
I think there's a very human benefit. There's a need we have to belong to a tribe, isn't there? So we have our home family tribe, our work tribe, and then we have if we're lucky, we have another one or two outside of both of those. That sort of sense of common values.
I think that somebody I was talking to said you've got to have a home, the place that you share with your family, a place that you share with the people you work with, and you need somewhere else that isn't one of those two to have a more complete life, that you go somewhere where it's about you and not about your work and not about your wife and your kids. And I think that's the thing that I've really missed about the football, is it was something that was not exclusively mine, but it was something that was about me as much as it was about anything else. And that just going and having those experiences was just I miss it terribly. I've been getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to watch the games, which has not been great the last couple of weeks, I've got to be honest. But there you go. C'est la vive, as they say. C'est la vive. Right, as they say in Rotherham, indeed. Just something to think about. If you were able to meet somebody that is either dead or alive, or a fictional character, and have dinner with them and talk to them, who would that person be, and what would you talk about?
Nelson,
as in
Horatio Nelson.
Lord Horatio Nelson. Okay. Yep. That didn't take a lot of thinking.
No, a big interest in Nelson. His
and the Napoleonic Wars.
Well, he's when you the sort of background to him. Bearing in mind, there's a connection for me because his father was a rector in a little village called Burnham Thorpe in Norfolk, and my family lived there at the same time. So there's I can take that ownership of that relationship clearly, but
obviously,
but no, he was someone who was massively complex and in an era where you had to promote yourself. I mean, he bought several of the, you know, the medals and that he had commemorating his victories. He paid for, he bought, because you basically had to promote yourself within to the Admiralty that you should be entitled to certain spoils from captured enemy vessels and things like that, you know, and to be given commission of the ships that, you know, the type of ships that you wanted, and when you say the type of ships, the type of ships that allowed you to take enemy ships captor and take their spoils, you know, take whatever cargo they had. So
proper warships, you know, or decent warships.
They know that having the right commission of the right ship to go to the right area would enable you to make money, you know. But so he was constantly promoting himself, you know. He would have been undoubtedly sort of a modern day influencer, YouTuber, you know, because he was all about getting as much.
Well, I mean, just taking that sort of comparison and picking that apart, because I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. Influencers, from what I've seen, are not people who have actually achieved anything other than getting a lot of followers on social media. Whereas you look at what Nelson achieved, he was actually a very high achieving member of the Admiralty.
I think it's only the mechanism. I can see the parallels. I think it's only the mechanism of achieving the wealth you want that's changed. You know, there was no internet. He couldn't have been a YouTuber if he wanted to. But what he could do, that, you know, the forum really to get yourself noticed and make money was
the social scene.
Well, you know, it was the, what I'm saying, it was the Navy. You know, it was the Navy was the biggest industry. And therefore that's what he did. But he absolutely tried to capitalise as much as he could to maintain his position in the limelight, because that would get him the next commission. That would get him, like I say, the best commission. So yeah, he's always been, as well as the obvious inspirational leader, the tactical genius, the sheer probably sort of superhuman ability he had to lead people in a horrific theatre of war.
Oh yeah,
you know,
he couldn't have got much more up front and up close and personal than the battles that he was involved with. You're right there. And tactically he was amazing as well, defeating much larger fleets just because of his tactical ability, I guess.
Yeah, I think he had not only the bravado to attempt certain things in certain battles, but he knew how to go about it. You know, he could. I mean, I would say that he could see the outcome way ahead of everybody else. And you know, I did have a really interesting conversation with somebody else, not in terms of conflict, but in terms of how to approach life. And what he said, that somebody once said to me, that you don't always have to know everything. All you need to do is be 10 minutes ahead of the other people in the room. And I think that kind of is where Nelson was. He could see things, how they were going to play out slightly quicker than everybody else. And because of that, he could make adjustments before others would. And that was why he was successful. You know, I think that's, you know, it's having that ability is something we sadly lack nowadays, I think, in our leaders, unfortunately. There you go. Just going back onto the subject of travel, is there anywhere on earth that you've never been that you really want to go? You've said Egypt. Is there anywhere else other than Egypt? Not something that I've got like a complete yearning to. You know, there would be there'd be a multitude of wonderful places, whether it was the beaches of Goa, you know, or Gobekli Tepe, or places anything. You know, I would say somewhere like Machu Picchu. You know, some places with it'd have to be not just stunning scenery and things like that. You know, some of the landscapes of certain countries, but somewhere with a genuine historical
some human interest.
Because I'd be all about that.
Well, I'll see you at Gobekli Tepe, because I want to get there. That's one of the two places I definitely want to get to.
Yeah, they've uncovered such a small part of it.
I know, it's an entire city, isn't it? It's massive. I'd just love to get around, spend some time there. That and the other place that kind of is on a much smaller smaller scale, but kind of similar, giving you an insight into other people's lives, is Pompeii, and the amount that they've now uncovered in Pompeii of they've uncovered pretty much the whole of the city now, and they've got some real insights into Roman life at that time, and it's given them such a view on how life was being lived, to the, up to the extent of the saying that there were fast food joints, like stalls set up along the streets where people were picking up food and doing takeaways and that kind of, which they'd never really thought was a case. So
the fact they've carried on excavating and then to understand the city in a wider sense. Yeah.
Well, it's a unique site in as much as that it was trapped in time, because of the way that the explosion, the volcano erupted. It actually did trap it and in time almost completely, so that you could see pretty much what everyday life was like because of who was trapped there and how they were trapped and everything else. So yeah, it's a lot for us still to learn about this planet, I think, mate. I have one more question for you, and then I'll call it a day, because we've been talking for about an hour and 40 minutes now, which is
wow,
quite amazing. I know you read a lot of different types of books. What's the book you're reading at the moment?
I'm reading a book called Stone on Stone, and that is about the stories of the period in which the great cathedrals were constructed, but point of view of some of the detail of who the master masons were.
Yeah.
Who were the people involved? The master mason at the time was the sort of what would now be the project director. He controlled everything, and all of the workforces, welfare arrangements, living arrangements. He hired all of the people, and he commissioned the architects sometimes, and to actually control every aspect of the job. So but they were therefore some very charismatic, some very big characters. Some of them fell out contractually with their clients. Some of them
well, they were almost pop stars. I mean, they were the pop stars of their age, weren't they, really, because they were so sought after because of their skills,
The things they were creating were massively significant to the society of the day,
and still are. In a lot of cases, a lot of those cathedrals are still there. So
yes,
they've definitely stood the test of time, haven't they?
The 100%. They've to achieve something with the level of success that, as you say, means that they're standing 200-300 years later, as well. Is also still look amazing.
Still look like they were. They don't look dated. They don't look like they're shabby and need to be knocked down and rebuilt. They look like they've got a lot of life left in them still, and they're still remarkable buildings and still have a massive influence on the people in the society around them, don't they?
I think it's possibly worth dialogue of in terms of most other forms of architecture have moved on in terms of residential and commercial office, etc. They have moved on to embrace modern materials, modern styling of things like, God help me, glass,
everywhere,
glass curtain walling and stainless steel and things like that. And yet there is no modern version of a cathedral.
No,
it just wouldn't have the gravitas. It wouldn't have that sense of connection to the earth and to the heavens, I suppose. I don't know.
No.
I don't know what, but yeah, it's just interesting that no one's come up with a modern cathedral.
Well, we're going to get one in Christchurch. Well, we're not even getting one in Christchurch. The cathedral that mostly collapsed after the earthquake over here, there was a massive debate between the church, the local council, and the public about whether or not it should be knocked down because and rebuilt. But fortunately, and I think it is fortunate, that the church was persuaded not to knock it down, because their first view was to knock it down and build a new one. But it's one of the last remaining buildings of any historical significance in Christchurch. So losing it, I mean, what you're talking about, the tying it into contacting with the ground and with the heavens, losing that sort of centerpiece of the city centre, I think would be a really bad thing for the city. And the modern building would look like a big shed, because that's what they look like.
I suppose Liverpool cathedrals are much more modern looking, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Liverpool's a much more modern style.
Yes.
But why would you lose that sense of continuity from the past by
I mean, the other argument is that it's certainly at the moment, all the conversations that are going around the First Nations, and I mean, are you aware of this issue about First Nation peoples?
Yes, in a general sense, yes. Yeah,
general sense,
yeah, of course, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on around about that at the moment because of the sort of the white privilege stuff that's come out over the last few years across the globe, and that's kind of changing people's perspectives about things like the cathedrals and also all the monuments that have been built, which generally tend to celebrate people who subjugated the people in the country.
Yeah,
which is, it's a difficult part of our history, it has to be said.
Yeah.
But anyway, I will leave our conversation there, and I actually would like to catch up with you again on the podcast and maybe focus a little bit more on the historical stuff, because it's a subject I really care about and I'm really passionate about as well, and I think we could have quite a good conversation just on that topic.
Indeed, there's I can do some better preparation for that to talk about some of the things, because it's a massive subject. It's so fascinating.
It is, and it is. Fantastic catching up with you, mate. I really always enjoy talking to you, and love to everyone.
I always enjoy talking.
Yeah, I know you do. I've noticed that. Look after yourself, and I will speak to you very soon.
Yeah, take care.
Cheers, mate. You too. Thank you for listening to my podcast, A Penny for Your Thoughts, with me, Steve Penny. I hope you've enjoyed today's conversation, and I look forward to sharing my next conversation with you in the future. Thank you.